Evergrande, the titan once hailed as the pride of China's real estate empire, is now collapsing under the weight of $300 billion in debt. Its final days are here. But this isn't just about one company. What if this is the beginning of the end for China's entire property market? As housing prices plunge to their lowest in 8 months, and ghost cities spread like a virus across the country, the question becomes painfully clear. Is China's real estate industry dying? Once the largest property developer in China, Evergrande was more than a company. It symbolized a generation of prosperity, rapid urbanization, and unstoppable construction. At its peak, its market value reached over $50 billion. Now, it's worth barely $280 million, and it's about to be delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. On January 29, 2024, the High Court of Hong Kong officially issued a liquidation order, declaring that Evergrande failed to present a viable plan to restructure its overseas debts, totaling $23 billion. Since then, the company has been on life support, and time is running out. And that's just the beginning. For years, Evergrande followed the classic Chinese growth model. Borrow big, build fast, sell quickly. They built hundreds of apartment complexes, many before construction was even completed, selling to eager homebuyers who feared missing out in a booming market. But that model was built on a fragile foundation: massive debt, speculative buying, and government-backed optimism. When China's regulators finally cracked down on over-leveraging in 2020 through the 3 red lines policy, companies like Evergrande were left exposed, naked in a financial storm. Suddenly, cash stopped flowing. Projects were halted. Homebuyers who had paid up front were left with empty shells. Trust evaporated. The collapse of Evergrande isn't just a corporate failure. It's a systemic threat to China's economy. Real estate accounts for around 25% of China's GDP. It supports millions of jobs, funds local governments through land sales, and drives middle-class wealth. But with Evergrande's failure, panic is spreading. New home prices fell 0.3% in June 2025, the fastest decline since October last year. Compared to the same month in 2024, prices have dropped 3.2%. Consumer confidence is sinking. Mortgage boycotts are growing. Thousands of unfinished apartments stand as skeletons of broken promises. Even companies that managed to restructure are now returning to the negotiation table, realizing that their first bailout wasn't enough. Thousands of Chinese families poured their life savings into apartments that may never be completed. They believed in the promise of homeownership, backed by the illusion of an always rising property market. But today, their dream homes are just skeletons, half-built structures surrounded by rusted scaffolding and weeds. In cities like Zhengzhou, Xi'an, and Chongqing, entire neighborhoods remain eerily empty. Apartment buildings stand silent, not because they are abandoned, but because they were never finished in the first place. Many families are still paying mortgages for homes they cannot live in. Videos of people protesting outside government offices, holding signs that say, "No house, no mortgage," or "We want our homes," have gone viral across China's social media platforms. These are not just angry citizens, they are desperate victims of a broken system. In mid-2022, something unprecedented happened in China's real estate history. Thousands of homebuyers began refusing to pay their mortgages. The logic was simple. If the developers don't finish the homes, why should we keep paying for them? This quiet but powerful rebellion spread to over 100 cities, affecting more than 300 unfinished projects. The boycott shook the financial world and forced the Chinese government to confront the social crisis behind its economic slowdown. In response, local governments tried to step in. Some set up bailout funds. Others offered subsidies or directed banks to extend mortgage deadlines. But these were short-term fixes. The core issue, distrust, remained. Many young Chinese now see homeownership not as a dream, but as a burden. They're choosing to lie flat, refusing to marry, have children, or take on long-term debt in a system they no longer believe in. China's property developers aren't the only ones feeling the heat. The country's financial institutions are also under immense pressure. As property values drop, so does the collateral that backs trillions in loans. Banks, already facing rising bad debts, are now more reluctant to lend. This creates a credit crunch, further stalling construction and worsening the crisis. Local governments, heavily dependent on land sales to fund public spending, are in trouble too. With land values falling, their revenues are drying up. Some provinces, like Guizhou and Hunan, are facing severe budget shortfalls, unable to pay teachers, civil servants, or maintain infrastructure. In July 2025, China's central government quietly bailed out 3 regional banks that were overly exposed to real estate loans. While officials avoided using the word bailout, the message was clear: the system is wobbling. The Chinese Communist Party knows that housing is not just an economic issue, it's a social contract. For decades, it promised rising prosperity in exchange for political obedience. But that contract is cracking. Over the past 3 years, Beijing has introduced a range of policies to stabilize the housing market, lowering interest rates, relaxing mortgage rules, encouraging local governments to buy unsold homes, allowing developers to issue more bonds. But nothing seems to restore confidence. The central government is caught in a paradox. If they stimulate too much, they risk reinflating the bubble. If they do too little, the sector collapses. Xi Jinping's doctrine of houses are for living, not for speculation, was meant to calm runaway prices. But in practice, it may have burst the illusion of ever-increasing property values, leaving both developers and homeowners in limbo. Across China, a strange phenomenon is visible from satellite imagery. Sprawling neighborhoods filled with empty apartment buildings. Roads, parks, and infrastructure are all there except for the people. These are the infamous ghost cities, products of overzealous development, fueled by speculative investments and blind faith in endless urban expansion. In places like Ordos in Inner Mongolia and Tianduching in Hangzhou, tens of thousands of housing units lie unoccupied. Some were built over a decade ago, yet still have no residents. These cities were never designed for people but for profit, built on the assumption that demand would always catch up. Now they serve as concrete graveyards of China's property dreams. China's younger generations are growing increasingly skeptical of the real estate dream. In previous decades, owning property was seen as the ultimate status symbol, the key to marriage, family, and financial security. Today, that narrative is crumbling. With wages stagnating, youth unemployment rising, and property values falling, more young Chinese are abandoning the idea of ever owning a home. Many prefer to rent, travel, or live with their parents. Some are even turning to co-living spaces, splitting tiny apartments with strangers to save costs. Social media platforms like Weibo and Douyin are filled with posts using hashtags like #GivingUpHomeownership, #NoMoreMortgages, #LyingFlatForLife. This shift represents more than a lifestyle choice. It's a cultural rebellion against a broken system. The big question now is, can China's real estate market bounce back? Experts are divided. Optimists argue that urbanization is still ongoing. China's middle class is expanding, and the government has the tools to stabilize the market. They believe real estate will evolve, away from speculation, toward long-term sustainability. Pessimists, however, see a deeper rot. They point to oversupply, millions of unsold homes, shrinking population, birth rates are at record lows, demographic shift, aging society means less demand for housing, lost trust. Once broken, public confidence is hard to rebuild. As one analyst put it, a house is not just bricks and mortar, it's a promise. And when that promise is broken, the market doesn't just crash, it collapses emotionally.